The year is 1990. 20th Century Fox Studios has greenlit a sequel to the hottest action fantasy blockbuster of 1986. That's right. We are getting a sequel to the film Highlander. A group of Hollywood's best and brightest screenwriters have been brought together specifically to develop an outline to pitch to the studio. We have 1 hour to bring that pitch to fruition, or someone else will steal this from us. We are those writers, and this is the unofficial Highlander II The Quickening role-playing game by Adam DeCamp, a role-playing game in which we are going to create the sequel to the 1986 film Highlander. I am your host and Hollywood studio executive, Jeff Stormer, and with me today are 4 incredible screenwriters and incredible creators who are going to tell the story of what comes after Highlander. I'm going to introduce us all one by one. I've got the overlay in front of me. I will start with Ira. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm stoked.
Ira, what is your experience with the 1986 film Highlander?
I watched it for the first time with my wife this week, and realized that I had never really seen a so bad it's good movie in my life. Not until this.
I'm thrilled. Let me ask you, what is the most memorable thing about the film Highlander that has lodged itself in your head in the week since you've seen it?
The fact that that Connor as a character has had centuries to develop a personality and never got around to it.
No, never was, frankly. And crucially, have you seen the film Highlander II, The Quickening?
I have not.
Great. Jacqueline, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
What is your experience with the 1986 film Highlander?
I finished watching it 20 minutes ago.
Great. What to you is the most memorable detail about the 1986 film Highlander?
Fabulous Freebird showing up in the first 5 minutes.
Really thank you for calling that out, because that is genuinely maybe my most memorable detail, is that we open with a Freebirds match, and it's very important. And crucially, have you seen the film Highlander 2?
No.
Juliet, thank you so much for joining us.
Hi.
What is your experience with the 1986 film Highlander?
I watched it for the first time last week and was very surprised by the things that happen in that movie in the order that they happen.
What is to you the most memorable thing about the film Highlander?
Okay, so it's during the very brief flashback to World War II, when our main character gets shot and then is like, "Oh, don't worry, it's a magic trick." Like that line delivery really got me.
I love that they include what I want to say is like a 15 to 20 minute unsubtitled German sequence of him just wrecking Nazis. It's a pretty genuinely, they were just like, we got to include this, right? We got to just include a sequence that does not include subtitles and just has him kill a Nazi, just so we make that part clear.
I think that segment might be under 5 minutes, but I could be mistaken.
Maybe I just expanded in my mind, because it truly embodies what I love about Highlander, which is the
weird sound effect that transports us to that scene is also very unexpected. There's like a wipe that they use. Anyways, we don't need to get into Highlander 1. That's not our purpose today.
And my final question, have you seen the film Highlander 2, The Quickening?
I have never seen Highlander 2, The Quickening, but I'm happy to know about that subtitle.
Finally, Pete, thank you so much for joining us.
Hello, hello.
What is your experience with the film with the 1986 film Highlander?
It was pushed on me in college, and I've seen it once every 5 years, I think.
I love this so much. I'm so glad. I've seen Highlander way more than a human being should have seen the film Highlander is the thing. And so I'm glad to know that curse is shared among people. What is to you the most memorable thing about the film Highlander?
Oh boy, probably the Kurgan, I gotta say.
Clancy Brown is a treasure. It's very funny that he is also Mr. Krabs. That's just a crucial detail that's very important.
Pivotal.
Imagine Mr. Krabs saying every line. Imagine Mr. Krabs saying it's better to burn out and fade away, and then flashing his tongue at a group of nuns.
It's so weird.
Imagine Eugene Krabs licking the back of a priest's hand.
Yeah, yeah. You understand it now. And crucially, have you seen the film Highlander 2: The Quickening?
I have not.
That is correct. None of our players today have seen the 1991 film Highlander 2: The Quickening, and we are going to create the film Highlander 2: The Quickening based solely on our knowledge of the original Highlander and what we imagine a sequel to the movie will be. Now, we have 1 hour to create the outline to our film, and I should mention there is a segment of this game that we will not be doing, which is an improvised table read, going scene by scene through our outline and directing and creating our movie at length. We don't have the time for that. We're going to stick strictly to creating the outline here today. But I am putting this in chat's hands. If we raise $100 over the next hour, pushing us towards our 5,000 goal, towards the Lymphoma and Leukemia Society, we will get back together at a later date and we will pull our group together and Kubrick ourselves our version of Highlander 2: The Quickening. So if you would like to see our version of Highlander brought to full life, the donate button is right there, and I'm going to throw the link in the chat by hitting !donate. You have the power to make this happen. The Quickening is in your hands. Now, players, as I mentioned, we only have now about 40 minutes to create the plot of the film Highlander 2. So I will ask you, what do you, knowing what you know about Highlander, what do you want to see out of the sequel to Highlander?
So something that's really important to me that I wanted to ask you guys was one of my first jaw drop moments watching Highlander was seeing music by Queen
Yes.
flash up in the opening credits. So what's our 1991 jaw drop, needle drop? Who's doing the soundtrack?
Such a good question.
This feels like a Jeff question for knowing what bands were active in 1991.
Journey?
So 1991 is an interesting year because it's effectively the 80s. You haven't had a lot of the iconic brands. So the late 80s energy is still very present.
When did Smooth come out?
Smooth, I think, was 97.
Okay. I would pitch then Meatloaf.
Meatloaf is Smooth was 1999, and that's very Meatloaf extraordinarily funny.
Yeah.
I think I love music by Meatloaf, popping up as one of the first things that welcomes everyone into the theater.
Okay, sure. Where are we going from there? What's the thing that we want to explore as we get into the experience of Highlander 2? Having experienced the movie, what's the next step of where we're going for this story and this universe? What do you want to see expanded upon in Highlander 2: The Quickening from the universe of the film Highlander?
I think most of us are ready to jump in. But I'm going to say, okay, so the thing about being immortal is you don't die, right? Being immortal, you're alive for a long period of time. I think in the same way that we had flashbacks to 15th century sort of stuff, I want to have some far future involved in this. And I want to have Connor or other characters or something like that having conversations with their cybernetic swords. And the swords are also characters that talk to the main characters, that there's dialogue between characters, and they're they can be laser swords or just cybernetic swords or something. That's a thing that I think this movie really needs. Future, it can also be back to the present or anything. I'm open on this, but I think somebody's alive in the future and somebody's having conversations with their swords, and their swords are talking back.
Yeah, I really agree with that. And I think that it's the quickening, right? That's the subtitle apparently. So I would really like to see a Street Fighter style, here's 32 new immortals who Connor has to get into weird battles with.
So that raises a good question. Does the whatever it's called, the tournament, start over again, or
maybe there's an anti-tournament?
An anti-tournament.
I have here a note from the studio.
Mhm.
The main character we have to keep the main character the same and have it be the last movie's protagonist and prize winner, Connor McLeod. So, talk to me about like where you want to see Connor McLeod go after having won the tournament and won the prize. Which crucially, I will. So my job as the person that has seen it is to not tell you anything about Highlander, so that anything that you misremember, we just have to roll with. So all I will say is that he won the tournament and prize. He is now the protagonist of the new film.
So I think one thing that could be, we have the tournament, we have like an anti-tournament idea. It's the very early 90s. Let's go Iron Chef with it. Let's go. Connor is like looking for a successor, not to like pass on stuff, but like he's tired of being alone in a certain sort of sense in the world. And so the tournament is to find like a second immortal who, and like maybe there's a third act twist or something, but like Connor is like trying to train people rather than them fighting him. They're fighting each other, and he's like guiding or like shaping their lives. Maybe he kills their parents in a way behind the scenes and we find out later. Who knows? But he's like shaping them and their destiny so that they come together to fight in the fight scenes. And he's like watching, and then he like, no, your form, and shifts the form. Like we get Connor in that way. He's still the main character, but he's not just slaughtering 32 younger immortals for the whole film.
I'm
Maybe.
remembering that he's mortal by the end of the first. I'm recalling
Yeah.
that from 25
Oh.
At
minutes
least
ago.
that he could have kids. I was also going to say that the prize to me sounded really awful.
Mhm.
That he's Professor X now?
Being able to hear everyone's thoughts and being aware of everything all the time sounds a lot like being on Twitter all the time.
That's really funny.
So I love the idea of him being like, I don't want to do this anymore, and the way that that can slot into finding a successor.
Yeah,
Mhm.
he's creating a new generation. I like him as this mentor figure, trying to like make something that's not just let's all kill each other, right? Like maybe it's quickening, but they're quickly trying. He's quickly, he's trying to create good in the world, maybe instead of just bloodshed.
So is it possible then that in this effort it kind of blows up in his face, and that's when the bloodshed begins again? Or
Yeah, it could be.
Okay.
Or the good that he's trying to create is still like in his own image. And so there's like an inherent selfishness. There's an inherent like autocrat sort of like nature, even to, like in his mind it's benevolent, but other people are like
Kind of challenging this. It's sort of a hubris and challenging idea of like taking the lessons of the previous film and sort of like lost himself and has to sort of be pulled back in.
And I think Professor X is a great like thing for that, because many of the X-Men after they graduate don't stick around with Professor X. They typically are like, no, you are doing things the wrong way, my guy. I think that's my understanding.
I love this. I do have another studio note here. I've just received a note from the studio. We have to set the film in the dystopian future of looks like they wrote a random number here, 2024.
Oh, okay. So this means that we have to start on a current WWE match.
Sure. Yes. Sure.
So, that's we need to have him going to, maybe there's a young wrestler who that's the start. He's recruiting a young wrestler who is an immortal, maybe.
And so with the mirror of the wrestling match from
Yeah,
the beginning of the first one.
I like that, especially if like, we kind of get that full in version of we get the confrontation backstage and it's I'm not here to kill you. I'm here to like recruit you to something greater. Like I'm here to present you with a greater cause.
Yeah.
Could we say that since it is set in the far dystopian future, that as events kind of click together, it becomes clear the hubris of the way that Connor has unwittingly recreated all of the circumstances that led to, for example, Kurgan problems and everything that Also, does it not feel like a really sequel move to just bring the Kurgan back, like for no
Yeah.
real reason? I think we just gotta stick him back in there.
That feels very like what I'm hearing, and like what that says, or what that kind of like vibe says to me a little bit is I get echoes of Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi, and sort of that like I tried to create something, and what I created was Ben Solo, or was Kylo Ren, as like, oh god, I tried to like make something different, and now there's another fucking Kurgan running around
Okay,
hacking people's heads off.
what if in the far-flung future of 2024, Kurgan, it turns out, is in the sword
That's
used
exactly
to
what I was
kill him, and so somebody else has the sword, and then like is hearing, and then we have scenes of them talking, and like they're seeing Kurgan there, and then they start to get weirdly tall and like turn Loganish, and
Yeah.
That rules. Yeah.
It's the child of Kurgan. That's
I-
cool.
I have a way that we can tie in Talking Sword also,
Mhm.
is
Mhm.
what if through having the prize and the power of being aware of everything, now Connor is aware that swords have souls, and now he can teach his disciples how to commune with them. Just so,
Oh yeah.
not that we need an explanation, we can do whatever we want, but it's fun.
so
The
it's,
Lego
it's
piece.
not because the science fiction future is here. It's still magic. Cool, I like it.
That would also be a way to backdoor Sean Connery back in as as
Naturally.
Connor's sword, because
Mhm.
he does hear his voice throughout the movie in the present.
Yeah, that's true.
We have to.
Well, I got great news that I have a studio note here that says we got Sean Connery in the movie despite having died in the last one, so that actually works out really conveniently.
That rules.
Okay.
We're nailing it.
Hmm.
So like what happens when we reintroduce this element of like what happens when we like talk to me more about the talking swords, and really like what it looks like when we get Connor in sword form talking, and like what does the talking sword element like bring to the story? How does that change sort of what is unfolding? I also have a pitch I want to throw out for something that is building that I'm sensing, but I want to hear your thoughts on the talking swords first.
I think the talking swords work as a handy metaphor, right? This is, especially if we get into like these contain the souls of the people they killed or anything like that. I think that we're talking here about like legacies of violence, cycles, etc., etc. And that's a way to express that like I can imagine it being too painful for him to carry the same sword that he's killed so many people with, if all the voices are speaking with him all the time,
Mhm.
or that kind of thing. I don't know.
I love
think
that
this-
angle. And oh no, go ahead.
I think there's also an interesting thing if we tie the soul and the talking to the sword that does the killing, because then like Kurgan's sword, Sean Connery's in that one. Sean Connery's not in Sean Connery's favorite sword. Kurgan is in the like Sean Connery sword that Connor was using and everything. And so there's this like even characters that we like, when we see Sean Connery show up and like mentoring our cool 1991, one of our other protagonists who isn't Connor, one of the younger immortals, or immortals to be, or what have you, like he's twisted by kind of the hatred or violence of the sword that killed him at the same time. And so we see like characters can have these like arch like twists. They can be more dramatic and kind of hammy and violent because their like soul, whatever their stuff is being, the quickening is the end goal of the movie, and maybe some of the protagonists believe in it and some of them don't, is or some of the younger immortals believe it, some of them don't, is trying to find a way to like have the legacy of memory without the violence, without the thing that inevitably warps both your actions and your like memory soul into violence.
That ties into the first movie. There's a whole thing about the legacy, like him lighting the candle every year for
Mhm.
Heather. Like that carries on sort of that sort of theme.
And something that I think is really interesting, that seems that like I'm feeling a sense of like something really interesting that we're kind of building towards, that I think is interesting because it's explicitly not sort of the playground of the first film, is if we are set after decades of Connor trying and eventually failing to like teach a new generation, and also Connor like still actively recruiting means that not only is there likely a new Kurgan, there's likely like we set up the possibility of not just a sword fight but a team battle, which is something that like is very much not the theme of the first one, and like having a like 5-on-5 sword battle is very compelling to me.
Mm-hmm.
Our tagline for Highlander 2 can be one is not enough.
Ooh.
Ooh,
Fuck.
only one is not enough. I love it.
I also want to say, simultaneously with all of this really like poignant and hard-hitting stuff about cycles of violence, I think it also it's inescapable that it's going to be really clear every time a sword is on screen that this is fantastic for merchandising. And then in a couple months, there are going to be versions of all of these swords with buttons, and you press it, and Sean Connery's voice comes out.
Yeah.
I mean, the talking sword button is hot in 1990. Like, that is the hottest toy of 1990 already, and so, like, that tracks very much that we're gonna have a whole line of them. So, talk to me about a few of these new Highlanders. Like, who do you want to see recruited? What's the vibe of the team that Connor is pulling together?
There should be a woman.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Due to the problems.
Can we get a little bit of like somebody from different sides of like the Berlin Wall? It's 1991.
Yeah.
Like-
Well, it's 2024, right?
Oh wait, no,
Oh.
you're right. My bad.
It is 1991 in the creation of the movie, I think. So
Yeah, we're
Okay,
making a
yeah.
movie in the future, which is 2024.
Uh-huh.
Right. Okay. So belay the previous thing.
So, to a qualifying question for this, like these are all new Immortals who were made after the first movie.
that's my thought. Or
Okay.
like Immortals to Be, I think we either like New Immortals or Immortals to Be. I thought that's sort of what I think we were pitching, maybe.
Maybe they're told that they'll get like the first step of immortality when they get through the first round of the tournament, like the 32 to 16, and then it's like higher levels of stuff. Or maybe they have the immortality as long as they have the sword with them, and these are all people who like the swords have found these people.
Mhm.
And like you get somebody in Hong Kong, and then they find this sword, and then they have this like tiny quickening, and then they're driven to go find this tournament.
So I have a studio note here that the film must include scenes in Scotland. What are we filming in Scotland?
Tournament at Stonehenge?
Yes.
Stonehenge, yeah. Yeah, of course, yes.
Some sort of syzygy with like the stones and the stars in the sky to like cause this timing.
Yeah. I mean,
Absolutely.
yeah, that makes sense. Is Stonehenge in like the Highlands? Is that a
Question mark?
why is it called Highlander at that point? I guess.
I mean, it just said Scotland. It did not specify. It did not specify the Highlands per se.
Well,
So- I'm not gonna pretend to know enough to. I'm not gonna pretend as a Hollywood executive to have enough specificity to not.
Also, I'm embarrassed.
Why that?
Stonehenge is not in Scotland. Apparently, I'm looking it up. But I think it's a fun. This is a thing that a sequel will do: is be like, we're in the Scottish Highlands, and even say it on screen, like Scottish Highlands 2024, and then show Stonehenge.
Yeah, it's not a Stonehenge. I think we can make that. That's going to slip right by whatever quality assurance team is working on Highlander 2: The Quickening.
I like the idea of Connor going there and being like, wow, things really changed. But to talk about some of these other characters, I think there's like we should probably have like at least one who's connected to a previous character from the first movie in some way, like a child or something maybe.
I think.
Sorry, could I just pitch that one of these new characters is actually a descendant of Connor's terrible cousin who like soccer headbutted him when he got ran out of town?
Yeah,
That's fun.
That's
I
fun.
like
think
that.
if we also have I think if we could get a Japanese woman
Sure.
from the 600 BC to the present, it's like, wait, what? How much connection do you have to the Sean Connery like situation or whatever? and obviously
Oh.
not a direct descendant, but like oh, there's a through line, but she's not the one who gets the sword that used to be like connected there. So she's fighting against somebody who then has the sword, and somehow there's this like this feels like a thing. I wouldn't do this. This seems like a thing that a movie would do. Is she's like, oh, I have this ancestral connection to this sword from 2,000 years ago.
Do they all need to be swords, or can there be like one big guy with a hammer or something, like a huge,
A battle
huge
axe?
fuck off mace?
You could take someone's head
Mace.
off with a hammer.
Yeah.
Mm.
Let's do that. I also want to float a team change,
Mm?
because what if after all of the accusations of witchcraft and the being driven out of the village, what if the McLeod line has now always considered the Highlander a bad omen, and
Oh,
the descendant is actually on the Kurgan's team?
I like that. Yeah.
Nice.
That's great. That's great. So, like, structurally, what we're looking at is like we open with Connor traveling the globe, assembling people. They all effectively mirroring the first film. We gather them in the Highlands, mirroring the call of New York City being the place of the game as Connor like assembles this, and like something that like is compelling to me about this pitch is the idea that like if there is already an evil Kurgan running around possibly assembling his own team, this is not the first time Connor has done this and is trying something different this time.
Yeah, that could be like a little bit of a reveal partway through the movie. Like, oh, like you trained the seed of Kurgan. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm. I and I think between the two sides definitely need to have more of an ideological split than there was in Highlander 1, because in Highlander 1 they were kind of just the same guy, and one of them was good and one of them was evil. Like they didn't really
Sure.
do things differently. Like maybe
They
one
did
of them-
both hunt people down and cut their heads off pretty relentlessly, yeah.
I would love, this is a silly thing, but as people progress through the tournament, or as people like progress and like get closer to the second prize or whatever, their accents become more and more inscrutable. Like they start with
Yeah.
whatever the accent from where they're from, and then like once they have the sword and once they start communing with this soul or whatever,
Everyone
they
sounds like Connor in the first movie.
yeah, they sound like a person doing an impression of a Skyrim character.
We stop calling them swords and start calling them sword.
Ah.
Pronunciation that no human in history has ever used for that term. So I do have another note here from the studio. Why are they Highlanders? Crucially, a detail not established in the first film, when he crucially verbatim asks, "Hey, what's the deal with us?" and is told, and I quote, "Why does the sun shine, or are the stars merely pinholes in the curtains of night?" We can't let that fly for 2 movies. Why are they Highlanders?
Are all of them Highlanders? Question mark.
Well,
They're all immortals, but they're not all. He's the Highlander.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Highlander being the term for an immortal who cuts people's heads off, to be clear.
Okay.
In the colloquial movie
Mm.
entity sense, not in the very literal Scottish Highlands sense. Why are they immortal?
I mean, okay, if I wanted to sell tickets to this movie, I would be like, they're Jesus Christ, the power of you know, they are like Elohim descendant. We can get the like Passion of the Christ, like churches buying out movie theaters and everything. Is that too much for like, they're Highlanders because of God? Question mark.
I like having some like apocrypha in there. I think that's fun. But I also like tying it to some bullshit marketable entity, like
Mhm.
like maybe there is a god of the quickening, or
Sure.
like a a legion of spirits who, like, the way that you actually become an immortal is that a spirit possesses you,
Mhm.
and that like
Mm.
all these new spirits are searching for homes and new immortals or something to that effect.
Earlier, there was a gesture that swords have souls. I would like to posit that the movie, and maybe this is an inconsistent thing in the movie, but at least one scene in the sequel implies that only swords have souls.
Yeah. I like that. Only swords as in to the exclusion of other weapons, or only swords as in or only weapons to the exclusion of like human beings?
Yeah, like mortal people. Just whoops.
I like that.
Pete, you had something you wanted to posit.
I mean, the thing I was gonna say is a little weirder, but could we
Weirder
say
than
that you mentioned Jesus? Could Jesus be the previous winner?
Jesus was the first Highlander. No, not the first, because we've gone back further
Yeah.
than BC. Previous I like.
Mhm.
Uh,
I really like, because that gives us a scene like the Good Omens scene. That gives us a little bit of a Good Omens when they're like at the crucifixion moment of like we see like a character square off with Jesus and they draw swords. That's very fucking good.
Have we incorporated the beastie? There was like a little creature of some sort that showed up when he like won the tournament. There was some sort of monster or entity that
Like a little like
Oh.
lightning thing, the lightning thing
Yeah.
that like burns through him.
Yeah.
It's like
Was that
Fantasia
anything-
monsters.
What was it, Pete?
It was like Fantasia monsters.
Yeah. Do those need to come back, or can we drop those?
It's up to you.
What
It's up to you.
if
Can we make mascot plushes out of them? There's a bunch of them now, and they talk.
important?
Sorry, Ivor.
Also, what if souls can only survive for so long in a sword without a Highlander wielding them?
Oh.
And so that's why every once in a while these souls come out of the swords and create new immortals, because otherwise they get corrupted, and that's how you get Kurgans.
Interesting.
And
So I've received a note from the studio. Can we fit some aliens in here?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, easy.
Really
Absolutely,
easy,
we
actually.
Aliens first came down and like the first like human Highlander was Cain. Like Cain and Abel were the
Ooh.
first two like human Highlanders,
It's
and
really
aliens
good.
came down and gave Cain a sharp rock or something, and then like he cuts off the head of Abel and has the first like quickening
And
thing.
Abel's cell goes into the sword, which turns him immortal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then Cain, like Mark of Cain, no sword like can like hurt him or whatever, because like nobody chops off his head until like many years later.
We're doing multiple biblical flashbacks.
I mean,
So are Cain and Abel both their souls traveling around in swords versus each other forever? Is that what's going on?
yeah, yes? Question mark? Yes,
They
yeah,
must
yeah.
at least be in there, unless they've disappeared from being not wielded for too long. But
I think that helps us fill our roster of like important swords with notable backstories to help the teens or young adults who hold them have some sort of character that they otherwise would not have much character.
right, because to be clear, there need to be too many of these swords with too much information about them. That needs
Mhm,
to be a
mhm.
lot of our runtime.
Yes.
Now you mentioned aliens, Jeff.
Yes, yes,
We did have at least part of this movie set at Stonehenge,
yes.
so that could be perfect for this.
Yeah. Maybe the
I-
little lightning beasties are the aliens.
Oh yeah,
That feels great. So I do have a question here from chat that I do want to throw in. Grizzlytron asks, since this is about 35 years in the future, what's the big swing the screenwriters make for what they think life is like in 2024?
visors are big.
Visors.
Sure.
Does that make sense? And like, there's a parallel between like having this like visor here and like the like neck cut
Mm.
sort of thing that like we can do some parallel stuff with the imagery.
Love
I'm gonna
that.
say
Love that a lot.
flying cars, but only for a police state.
Sure. Okay. Great. Yeah.
In the Blade Runner tradition, sure.
Sure.
Yeah. Like, is there a big change of government? Are we looking at like a big like is there a like exaggerated sort of authoritarian element to this? Like, are we seeing?
This is not my real answer, but I just wanted everybody to know that I just had the strongest urge to blurt out Connor is the president.
Ooh.
I think he
Okay.
should be. right?
I knew I was taking that risk when I decided to divulge the thought anyway.
Is he the president of the United States of America, or is he the president of
Scotland.
okay?
I
With Irish unification of 2024 and the
mhm.
Scottish independence. Street Fighter gives us the idea of like the United Nations as a big idea, right? I feel like we could get like the UN because that was a big dream of the 90s, or like Interpol could be a big thing. Maybe it's Interpol with flying cars, but they're secretly also an evil race of aliens.
Sure.
Oh,
So-
is it sorry? Is it sort
No,
of
no.
like a Mass Effect thing where like if we advance too much, like these aliens smack us back down a certain peg?
I was gonna say, what if the aliens have decided that the Highlander experiment has gone too far and it's getting crazy down there, and we gotta mop this up.
And that's
Oh.
why Connor's trying to like craft.
He's got to bring
More
back the
people-
program after 20. He tried this once before out of pure altruism, but now he's doing it with an ulterior motive, which may also corrupt this second attempt at creating a new generation of Highlanders. Because now he's doing it because, oh god, a worse threat is coming, and we kind of get that inversion of ideals. A little bit of a Magneto was right, because evil Kurgan shows up and is like, hey, you fucked this up the first time because you didn't have good intention. Now you're fucking it up again because you still don't have good intention. I'm here to stop you.
I want to put a tiny spin on it. I'd love for us to only realize the reason why he was doing all of this and that there was an alien threat to the Earth after it's already been dealt with.
Yes.
A bunch of stuff happens because of that, but then it's only exposited to the audience after the fact, because that feels like a Highlander thing to do.
Then I've got a then there's an excellent, then maybe, I mean, throwing out an even bigger pitch, maybe that's why ultimately the first attempt at this new generation failed was I brought this group together to stop these aliens. We stopped these aliens, but in doing so, I created a class of soldiers that proceeded to cut each other's heads off until there was only evil Kurgan left.
Great.
Yeah, that could make sense. I like the idea then of like that reveal. We could do it a little bit Saw and like have our flashbacks throughout the movie, instead of being like to Connor's life, could be like we're following the story of these two brothers, and in the last 2 minutes one of them bashes the other's head in with a rock, and like that sort of reveal coinciding, like, you know, the music plays and you realize who it is as the
Then this
like
where you
that.
have I would do anything for love, but I won't do that. Smash.
Love that. That's great. We have our big climax of like the showdown of Team Kurgan and Team Highlander, the reveal of like why things fell apart the first time. A lot of that like interspersed storytelling. And like the thing that I really liked that was said that I really kind of want to like lean on, as because I think this is great, is like a sequel tease of a third film about the god of the quickening, of like these aliens showed up and we fucked, but now the big alien is coming. This is perhaps on my brain because of the ending of Piranha 3D, but like now the boss alien is coming and we have a group of people who are ready to face off.
Ooh, okay. So what if the reason the aliens are coming isn't out of a like Klatubraniktos sort of like judgment on humanity? What if it's just like part of their like coming of age thing? We get a little bit of like a Predator sort of situation where they're like coming and hunting and fighting and everything, but they like they're drawn to the signature of the immortal
That's great.
prize, quickening, whatever.
And then a big alien shows up at the end, and we get ready for the big final battle, and then that's the closing point of the movie. We've got the central hook of whose ideology is correct here. We see the sort of like fall from grace of Connor, and then sort of a redemption. I think structurally this is a movie, so I will throw a vote to everyone. The pitch that we've created, do you think is better or worse than the film Highlander 2? Ira.
Undoubtedly, I think it's better.
Jacqueline.
I think it's better.
Juliet.
I think I've been intentionally sabotaging it to make it closer to the quality that I would expect from this thing, but I think our thing is probably better still.
And Pete.
Way better.
And I mean, this is great. I think we've got a successful outline. And hold on, I'm actually receiving one final note. Crap! I got the time zones wrong, gang. I forgot. Turns out somebody else already turned in the script, and they've already made the film Highlander 2: The Quickening.
No.
Sorry, everybody.
Ah.
That one's
Damn
on me. I'm gonna
Every
call in my
time.
assistant Jory. Jory, can you read us the Wikipedia summary of the film Highlander 2: The Quickening for our players to hear in real time?
Absolutely here. So bad it's good movie expert Jory here. Almost 500 watched in the last 5 years. Here's the Wikipedia plot summary for Highlander 2: The Quickening. In the 1990s, industrial pollution has destroyed Earth's ozone layer, leading to millions of deaths due to the sun's unfiltered rays, including Brenda Wyatt McLeod, whose death inspires her husband, Connor McLeod, to use his wealth to save the world. By 1999, Connor supervises a scientific team headed by Dr. Alan Nyman, who creates, there's a typo on the Wikipedia here, who creates an electromagnetic shield to protect the Earth from radiation. The shield saves the Earth, but with side effects of condemning the planet to constant darkness, high temperatures, and humidity. Humanity loses hope, and the shield falls under the control of the corrupt SHIELD Corporation and its chief executive, David Blake, who imposes heavy fees on countries for continued protection from solar radiation.
David Blake, crucially, is played by John C. McGinley, who you may know
Yes.
from Scrubs. He is also wearing. I'm trying to remember if he has a terrible mustache. Connor McLeod is wearing a terrible long wig the entire film.
And in his performance, John C. McGinley has stated he made the wrong choices. He wanted to sound cool, dark, and serious, and watching back, he's like, I fucked up.
He was trying to do an Orson. Imagine everything
Yeah,
you hear
he's
about this
trying to do
character is John
Orson
C. McGinley doing an Orson Welles impression.
God.
Jory, you
In-
may continue.
In 2024, Connor, now mortal, is a frail old man. While watching an opera performance, he has a flashback from 500 years ago on the immortal's distant home planet of Zeist. Connor was chosen by Juan Sanchez Villalobos Ramirez, a wise Zeist sorcerer, to lead a rebellion against the corrupt leadership of General Katana. Using the Quickening, Ramirez creates a bond between him and Connor that cannot be broken even by death. Katana and his troops then attack, crushing the rebellion and imprisoning Connor and Ramirez. They are put on trial by Katana's priests before being exiled to Earth to live as immortals, locked into ageless lives. They will fight each other until there's only one left. The survivor will win the prize, a choice to either remain on Earth as immortal or return to Zeist, their past crimes forgiven.
Katana is played by Michael Ironside, and there you have it. The official explanation for why they're Highlanders is they are criminal aliens from the future.
Huh.
Or
In a sequence that looks like it's out of a Dune adaptation. Awakening
So-
from his... Oh, yes?
So, in the flashbacks in Highlander 1, in the Scottish Highlands, where he doesn't know why he's still alive,
Mhm.
he's just lying to everyone?
No, I believe they
No,
also
he
lose
is-
their
yeah,
memory.
You lose your memory and only know that you are a Highlander. You only know that you are an immortal. It is only and so when you win the prize, you are revealed that you are an alien criminal from the future, and you have the option of a pardon or keep hanging out on Earth.
Awakening from his flashback, Connor is approached by Luis Marcus, the leader of an anti-SHIELD group. Luis has uncovered the possibility that the ozone layer has returned to normal and that the SHIELD Corporation are keeping its restoration quiet to maintain revenue. Luis asks Connor to help her take down the SHIELD, but he refuses, replying that he's too old and disapproves of terrorism. Meanwhile, on Zeist, General Katana orders Connor's death and sends assassins Corda and Reno to Earth to kill him. McLeod defeats Reno and Corda and uses their quickenings to regain his youth and summon Ramirez back to life. Important note, the assassins do have hoverboards.
Important
Sure.
note, thank you.
Thank God.
And there's it feels like you're watching like Batman and Robin with like wire like choreography in the action sequence. It's incredible. Ramirez awakens where he died in Glencoe, Scotland during a Shakespeare play. Drawn to Connor's location, and this is incredible that this is what the Wikipedia summary says, his earring is apparently worth enough money to buy him to buy a new suit of clothes and a plane ticket to New York, which we see him be a laugh riot at ruining the Shakespeare play, and also a like 80s getting dressed montage of him trying on new clothes and enjoying how wacky it is to fly on a plane. General Katana also arrives on Earth, determined to kill Connor himself. After Ramirez finds Connor and Louise, the three make a plan to take down the Shield. Katana approaches the Shield Corporation and creates an uneasy alliance with David Blake to kill Connor. When it is discovered that Naaman has revealed to Connor proof that the ozone layer has indeed healed, Blake has Naaman imprisoned. Connor, Ramirez, and Marcus break into the prison, but Naaman dies, and Ramirez sacrifices his life to save Connor and Marcus from a trap. Even though he does say then that his death doesn't really matter because they're always connected and he can just talk to him whenever he wants. Katana kills Blake and Connor has one final confrontation with Katana. After winning the fight and decapitating Katana, Connor uses the combined quickening energy to disable the shield, and the world begins to see a night sky for the first time.
Crucially, also it mentions on the Wikipedia, I need you to visualize, it references that the sets are deliberately designed to look as much like Blade Runner as possible because Blade Runner made a lot of money, and they were like, we gotta get that Blade Runner money. We gotta hit that.
Adds up.
We gotta hit that Blade Runner.
I think it'd be fun if they used footage from Blade Runner, considering Blade Runner, I believe, uses footage from The Shining in its ending.
And it is important to note that Highlander 3 ignores Highlander 2.
Yeah, Highlander.
There's a Highlander 3?
There's a third one?
There's so many more.
There's like
The Fast and
6.
Furious.
There's like 6 of them, and all of them still star like Christopher Lambert, and there's also an anime movie.
There's
Oh,
also a
that-
TV. There's also a TV show that went for, I want to say, like a very long time, multiple seasons.
Yeah, like
What?
7 or 8 seasons.
Jeez.
That involves Connor's nephew Duncan MacLeod, and then there's a movie where Connor and Duncan MacLeod team up to fight Edge. You know, Edge from Edge and Christian.
They team up in they did it first, Highlander Endgame.
Oh my god.
See,
So that is Highlander. That is the plot of Highlander 2: The Quickening. This has been Highlander 2, the unofficial role-playing game by Adam DeCamp. Thank you all so much for playing. Do you feel like you have gained a greater appreciation for the 1986 film Highlander, which might unfortunately be my favorite movie in the world?
I'm so excited to watch Highlander 2 now.
Yeah.
It's remarkable is the word that I would use to describe this film. All of them are remarkable in their own ways. All of them are joyful in their own distinct ways. They're all trash in their own distinct ways, and like you really get to discover the different ways that a movie can be trash and that a TV series can be trash. Also, crucially, I will call out that the director of the movie came around to hating it so much that there's also Highlander 2. I believe is it called the final cut? What's the alternate version of Highlander 2? Where they remove all of the aliens.
Yeah, I think it's like a Renegade edition.
The Renegade, thank you. It is the Renegade edition where the director was like, actually, I realized I hated everything with the aliens, cuts out all of the alien plot, and just kind of goes, magic. They were magic to the past. That's all we got.
Does Highlander 2 have like an iconic music thing?
It does. It has it's not necessarily the theme song in the same way that the other Queen's is, but it does feature music by the lead singer of Foreigner, which is the closest that they get. It's a downgrade in every single conceivable way.
I think rather than an appreciation for Highlander or Highlander 2, which I do have some appreciation for Highlander, I gained an appreciation for the collaborative pitch process.
I feel like we made something special here today. I am excited to like Kubrick it to life later as we raised over $200, I believe almost $200 plus a donation match, which is amazing. Thank you all for donating. Thank you all for hanging out. Thank you all for playing. We are going to throw it to a Be Right Back screen, and then we are going to come back with more incredible stream action here at Moongaritaville. Thank you all so much for watching, and stay tuned.